Hey everybody, so tonight's episode of Hopeful Wisdom, I'm going to tag a couple of people that wanted to be kept in the loop. 1 second. Boom. Boom. All right, so tonight's episode of Hopeful Wisdom is a little bit interesting. We are going to be talking about Psychic Sylvia Browne's prediction of what appears to be the coronavirus. And I'm going to pick apart a couple of her predictions. Before I did this topic, because this is such an uncomfortable topic for me, I called my rabbi and I had a little bit of a breather and I asked him some questions about basic psychic ability. So my first question to my rabbi, who's Rabbi Mayor Fund, was, do psychics exist? And he said, absolutely. Where does psychic ability come from? He told me a person is born that way. Now I'm laughing because my rabbi knows that I've struggled with psychic abilities most of my life. And it took a lot of research, prayer, guidance, and really going to great lengths to try to understand myself, which is really important that we understand ourselves, especially when it comes to something like psychic ability, when you're basically, at the mercy of what a person believes. So I keep an open dialogue at all times with my rabbis, because I have had visions on things that I have no rational knowledge of that have been connected to the Torah. But we're not talking about me per se. We're going to be talking about Psychic Sylvia Browne and her prediction of the coronavirus, which I will post in the comments below. If you're looking at my page, I actually did post the vision shared. Basically, her vision says around 2020, there's going to be a pneumonia-like illness that attacks the lungs and bronchial tubes that's going to show up. And then what's going to be interesting about it, it's going to disappear as quickly as it shows up. Now, she probably is talking about the coronavirus because psychic abilities are real. What the problem I have, and what has prompted me to do this topic, especially, this is something I don't like talking about. I don't like talking about conspiracy theories, psychics, mediums, fortune tellers. I don't like discussing these things because I have been called everything from psychic, a star child, crazy, all sorts of things throughout the course of my life. So this is a very sensitive topic to me. But psychic ability is something you're born with, similar to your eye color. Some people are allergic to cats. I have blended senses. I can't smell and hear at the same time either. Go figure. But are psychic abilities supposed to be used to relay messages over? Well, it really all depends on, well, did you ask? Because that was the question I asked Rabbi Fun today, is what if somebody has a vision about another person? What are they supposed to do with that vision? He basically said, ask them if they care to hear it. You can't just go to them and tell them what you think, because at the end of the day, psychic ability, even though it is a gift from God, it's what you think. It's not like, for example, Psychic Sylvia Browne's prophecy or vision is in her book, End of Days, Predictions and Prophecies. Right now, prophets don't exist. We don't have, what we're talking about is the gift of Nevuah. The gift of Nevuah was taken from the earth around the time of the second destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. If anybody here is watching this, if you could comment when Nevuah was removed from the earth, someone who's more learned than I am, I would appreciate it. But when it was removed from the earth, it was given to children and to the mentally ill. Now, the problem here is to call Psychic Sylvia Browne's vision of prophecy is an oxymoron, because a lot of these people are talking to the dead. They're talking to spirits. The problem with talking to the dead and talking to spirits is you're talking to something you cannot see. Is this, whatever that is that you're talking to, could be anything. We really don't know. And that's why this is such an important topic, and that's why this is so dangerous, is because we can't assume that everything we see is correct. And what is psychic vision for? Now, what I use it for and how I use it is a dialogue where I talk to God and say, well, how could I best help the world? Little old me, with all of my quirks and the things that make me a little bit different, how could I use this to better the world? One thing that the world is greatly lacking, especially in the religious Jewish community, is somebody who talks about these topics and who understands them from a personal experience. How many people consider themselves to be an empath? An empath is completely different from a psychic. A psychic has vision, which comes by way of audio in their mind, picture, or if they're talking to spirit, we're going to do a whole nother show at a later date on the people who talk to spirit, because that's talking to the dead and you're not allowed to do that. Now, the problem is there aren't a lot of shows that will explain this and hopefully make it interesting enough. But an empath, for example, really does sense the feelings of other people. And it's hard. There's so many different things that we can get lost and confused in all of them. But today we're talking about psychic ability. So we're not going to get into empaths today. We're not going to get into people who think they're star children or anything like that. We're going to talk about psychic ability. Now, I'd like to talk to you about another vision that Psychic Sylvia Browne had back in 2002. After this video is finished, I'm going to post a clip so you can all see it. It's when she was on the Montel Williams show. The parents of Sean Hornbeck had an opportunity to talk to her. Now, Psychic Sylvia Browne has written several books. She has possibly helped thousands of people. But at the same token, is she helping them the right way? This gets into can and should. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. But this particular topic of this particular vision I find very, very, very interesting, because in her book, End of Days, it really does sound like she's talking about the coronavirus. But on live national television, when Sean Hornbeck's parents, now for those of you who don't know who Sean Hornbeck is, I'm going to give you a brief, well, my version of brief, a brief synopsis of the case. Sean Hornbeck was abducted by someone named Michael Devlin, who is 6'3", white as the driven snow, wears glasses with sandy brown hair. Now, why am I telling you this? Did I see it in a vision? No, I saw it on the news when Sean Hornbeck was found alive after being kept as a sex slave for a number of years by his captor. Now, Psychic Sylvia Browne told his parents that he was abducted by someone who was either black or Hispanic with dreadlocks down to the car she had wrong. She also, Psychic Sylvia Browne, also told Sean Hornbeck's parents that he was not alive and gave landmarks of what to look for where they would find a body. Psychic Sylvia Browne, in that particular prediction, was dead wrong. She was wrong when it came to talking to parents of a missing child. This is why psychics, while they are sometimes used, not often, by police to investigate crime, this is why We cannot rely on a vision of a seer or a dreamer of dreams. We have to understand psychic ability. We're all a little bit psychic. You know how many times I've talked to people that say, that they've had different experiences and different vibrations and different psychic predictions. We're all a little bit psychic. We all have an intuition. It's just the difference between someone who's regular and someone who's doing, let's say, being a psychic for a living. Just because they can, it gets into can and should. We're not allowed to be a psychic for a living. Why do I know this? Because I've discussed it with my rabbi several times. I've had it's been something that I've had to deal with and has been hard for me to manage, because there have been times where I know something about somebody and I have to figure out in that equation, do I rationally know this information, or did I pick up on this information psychically? That's been a problem that I've had to deal with in my own personal life. And psychic ability is for people to come closer to God. And a lot of people, like my rabbi said this afternoon on the phone, just because there are people who are atheists who have psychic ability. A great deal of people who have these abilities are using them incorrectly. We are not supposed to be playing with tarot cards and asking to see the future. Now, let's talk about seeing the future, shall we? Just because you have had a vision doesn't mean that vision is going to come into fruition. Doesn't mean that vision is going to be a reality. We cannot rely on the word of a psychic as if it's coming from God, because the gift of Nevuah gets into the differences between being a prophet and being a psychic. The gift of Nevuah was taken from the world. And if anyone can verify exactly when, if we have a date or something, there are people watching who are far more learned than I. But if we know exactly when Nevuah was taken from the world, I would appreciate that. But it hasn't been given back. Again, it's been given back in children and in the mentally ill. Nowhere does it say it's been given to psychic mediums, fortune tellers, palm readers, or the like. Visions are put here for a person to become closer to their creator and to pray. For example, when I have visions of mass destruction, floods, volcanoes, hurricanes, what have you, which I've had, and they're terrifying. It's not like a bad dream. It's a physical thing where your head hurts. You have in some cases, your nose bleeds. Psychic vision is not. It's not a toy, and we can't. Especially now that we all have a lot of time on our hands, we can't run around occupying ourselves with the visions of psychics. It's time to educate ourselves, if for those who are interested in this topic, on what is the Torah perspective on this, and how do we maneuver through this and still follow God. Now, when you have a vision of something, in fact, someone watching, I have visions about San Francisco that are terrifying. You pray for them not to happen. That's how you're supposed to deal with this. It doesn't tell me to go and alert the mayor of San Francisco that I have a vision of mass destruction. No, you're supposed to go and pray and say, please, God, whatever I saw in my vision that's mass destruction of San Francisco, please don't let it happen. Whatever's causing this, make it go away, make it stop. This is how you're supposed to deal with it. That's a far cry from me saying what I see into the future. Because when you see something into the future, you're seeing a possible outcome. And this is for people who are even a little bit psychic. You're seeing a possible outcome. We cannot limit ourselves to a possible outcome because we know from the Torah that Hashem gives us many outcomes. You know how many outcomes there are in the Torah all over the books of the actual books of prophets, where people who are actually able to communicate one-on-one directly with God. There's several possible outcomes. There are several possible outcomes of how something can unfold, which means to limit yourself to one would kind of be foolish. Nevuah was taken away after the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash. So I was actually mistaken. I thought it was the second one. Thank you, Benjamin. It was after the first Holy Temple was destroyed, which was the time when Jerusalem was occupied by the Greeks. So by the time that Jesus rolled around and all the other alleged prophets of religion, Nevuah was taken away from the earth at that time. So it was not a gift that Muhammad could have had because it didn't exist. It's like something else that doesn't exist. I don't know. I'm not a comedian anymore. I'm not hot on my feet. Anyway, the point is that at a time where it's life or death, okay, just like when parents who in their, you can't blame the parents of children who are missing or someone who has been murdered. You can't blame them for wanting to know if there's answers. You can't blame them for that. Hold on one second. Nevuah was withdrawn from the world according to the Torah at the time of the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash. Thank you, Rabbi Yitzchak. I appreciate that. So, and Binyamin said the same thing. So we're dealing with a gift that hasn't been here in an incredible amount of time. And again, Hashem did give it to children and to the mentally ill. You know how many people I know that are psychic have been to the hospital? Almost all of them. It's very serious because when you have something about yourself that you don't really understand, and nobody can understand it more than I can, you have to really dig hard to find a rabbi who's going to take you seriously and hold your hand through this. I almost got lost stargazing. I had a very big problem with astrology for a while. I don't even touch it anymore. There's no point. Heaven is higher than the stars. And I understand when people who find many psychics who are very spiritual, they believe in the universe and karma and the force. All of that is God. All of that is God. And God did not give us permission to share our visions as if they were fact, because psychics can oftentimes be wrong. What if a psychic told you you're going to win $1 million? Okay, that would be, what lotto numbers should I play? Well, what if they were seeing a vision of wealth? Okay, because in Psychic Sylvia Browne's vision to Sean Hornbeck's parents, who was found alive, by the way, the one detail she got right was the name of the perpetrator, of the one who abducted their son. So let's say this psychic gets one fact right, that you're supposed to have high levels of wealth. What if they're supposed to happen in business and not by winning the lottery? This is what I'm saying. It's a possible outcome. And we can't get lost in possible outcomes because that's not what the gift is for. The gift is for an individual to better the world and better themselves, and how we're supposed to use these gifts in order to do that. Where with someone, for example, who's an empath, when you feel the emotions of somebody else, it doesn't mean you can go up to them and just say, I have the answers to heal you. No, you might need to just pray for them, and that becomes something special between you and God. You know how many people I pray for? A lot. I don't tell them the things I see in their future because I have no way of knowing if that's ever going to be fact. I'm going to share with you a vision that I've had since I was a child. And I discussed it today with my rabbi, and he said that I could share it. Because that's how serious this gift is. This is my little note. I took notes during our conversation. This is how serious this actually is. That before I do something like this, I always check in with my rabbi, because I want to make sure that what I'm doing is with as much fear of heaven and love and revere of God as I possibly can. Now, I'm going to tell you straight out, this video is from the Jewish perspective on how to deal with psychic abilities, what they are, why they're important, why they're not important. And your local fortune teller will tell you something totally different. But your local fortune teller is probably using a gift the wrong way. That's a very big problem. Now, since I was a little girl, I would have dreams and visions of a building coming from the sky. Now, I was not raised Jewish. I was raised miscellaneous Christian. I didn't go to yeshiva. I didn't have Jewish friends. I had a Jewish art teacher who kind of took me under her wing. But I would always have visions of a building coming from the sky to the ground. It wasn't until I was sitting at my rabbi's Pesach Seder when I was 20 years old. So this was before I was even Jewish, when I was 20 years old. And he talked about the Beis HaMikdash, the third holy temple, coming from the sky to the ground. I raised my hand and I said, "That's a thing? I can't believe that's real. That's something I had been seeing my whole life. That's a vision I pray to happen, because that's world peace." But again, who's to say the Beis HaMikdash, the third and final holy temple, is going to be miraculously? We learn from Hazal, we cannot rely on miracles. That would be a pretty heavy-duty miracle. Who's to say the temple isn't going to be physically rebuilt by human hands? Either way, the Messiah arrives. It doesn't matter to me if my vision was wrong. I want the redemption, and I want the Beis HaMikdash to stand regardless of how it gets here. As much as I would love to see that miracle, that doesn't mean that's the way that cookie's going to crumble. I've also, in this vision of when I saw the Beis HaMikdash come from the sky to the ground, there was fire, smoke, ash. The world was not in good condition. And as soon as there was like the boom, imagine like sparkles. Imagine like the color of the sky that I can't even I'm not an artist in that sense, so it's hard for me to describe. But imagine a painting of like beautiful orangey pink, and the sky being colors of shades of blue, unlike anything it's ever had. I'm going to get to your comment, Ellie, in just a second. This is something that I have seen. So I pray for this to happen, but that's just it. I know that I'm supposed to pray for the good to come, and pray for the bad to stay away. Why didn't Psychic Sylvia Browne, when she had her vision about the coronavirus, did she pray for it not to happen? Well, no. She was a career psychic. She died in 2013. She was a career psychic. Elliot says, one second. Look to books and Rebbe's letters. It's the same sort of guidance. The term psychic has many aspects to become manipulative. Divination may be used in manipulation, but working with dreams and visions is a deeply Jewish practice referred to many times in the Torah, Tanakh, and many. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But we have to rely on someone who's holy and who's actually doing this the right way. You're not going to find very many people who are actually God-fearing who have this, that are going to say, "Let me get out the tarot cards and tell you your future." That's not a practice that's permitted in Judaism. And that's the problem, is that we have people going we have people going to other individuals who are unqualified, who are not using psychic gifts the proper way. You're absolutely right. This has been going on. We go to people with visions. I go to my rabbi with visions when I have them. I mean, to decide, what should I do with this? Is this something, where is it in the Torah? First of all, where is the practical knowledge? Like, there are times that I have to learn the practical knowledge, the practical halachic knowledge after the fact, which means I'll have a vision often of something that I know nothing practically about, such as the Beis HaMikdash. I had no idea at 20 years old that was an actual rooted from the Torah. So it's good when you have psychic ability, you need to have a lot of support around you and a lot of people who not only believe you, but believe in you, and not believe in you like you're a prophet, believe in you that they understand that you're different, that you deal with this, and that you need hand holding and you need community to be a part of your life so that you don't go crazy. I mean, when people are, can someone actually, Elliot, you're so knowledgeable. Can you explain divination, please? If you get a chance to put it in the comments. Divination is something, I have not educated myself about it, but it's something that the word, basically, don't touch it. 1 second. Yes. Tarot have the occult roots, so it would be seen as a Vodazara. Okay. Is there anywhere around, what exactly is divination though? Like, what is that? Is that like the psychics who talk to spirit? What exactly is divination? I'm going to let him reply. For people who watch my show, I'm a little long-winded, so it's a great show to watch while you're doing the dishes or folding laundry. Angel cards may be fine. I've seen rabbis give visions off the Zohar. So again, but that's dealing with someone who's religiously able to do this. So when it, like, for example, there many years ago in the time of the Baba Sali hasn't been alive for a long time, but there were soldiers who were kidnapped by the Arabs, and the police went to the Baba Sali and asked if he knew where the soldiers were, and he said that he didn't, but his son does. Well, why didn't he just take a wild guess? Well, because he knew he knew that wasn't the right thing to do. So, Elliot, would you be interested in being a guest on the show to do a whole topic on divination? Where we could just do a whole topic on it. So, we have to remember that your local fortune teller is probably not doing things the right way. I don't think while we're all cooped up in the house, you should be catching up on Psychic Sylvia Browne's books. I don't think that that's necessary. I think that it's time to understand that the world is rapidly changing. I did not see in any of my visions the coronavirus, but I have seen many other things that would, in my understanding of Torah, that would relate to the end of days and the coming of Mashiach. Like in my vision of the Beis HaMikdash, once on the ground, the Malachim, you see angels bowing their heads. And it's something that when I talk about it, I tear up because I understand what it means to have a vision that's so real, you want it to be true. And this one is mine. It's so real. I want it to be true. I pray for, now that I know it's a thing, the Beis Hamikdash to come from the sky to the ground. Because what I also pray for is a miracle that is so large that it removes all doubt from humanity of the existence of God. And I'm pretty sure the Beis Hamikdash, the Holy Temple coming from the sky to the ground, would remove all doubt in the hearts and minds of all humanity of the existence of one creator, the one and only true God. Does anyone have any questions they want me to address? I'm going to give everyone else time to put up their question if they have any. But I felt this was important because it's something I've had to deal with for most of my life. It's made me feel awkward. It's made me feel strange. It's something about myself that's separated me from my peers and the people in my life. It's something that I've had to deal with and something that I've had to really just learn how to be comfortable with about myself. And sometimes it's hard. I mean, what do you do when you just want to tell people this is a vision I've had, but then I have to take a step back and be, well, you know what? Maybe this is a vision they've had because maybe I'm the one who knows. Maybe I'm a person who knows how to pray for these things not to happen. The point isn't for your visions to be. There are some visions we really want them to be right. There are some visions we really hope that they're right. There's a reason that this people who are psychic are heavily gifted people. My point is I want them to be doing things the right way so they don't harm themselves. You can drive yourself crazy. You can, those who talk to the dead, it's very serious. It's very serious. We have no idea what you could be bringing in to your life and into your head. It's a very touchy subject, and it placates on what people believe. And a lot of the reason why people don't believe in it is there's so much being done wrong when there's so much room for human error. Not every vision we see that's good is going to come into fruition. We can pray for these things not to happen. What are some ways you protect yourself? Let me just read this question. What are some ways you protect yourself from constant bombardment of feelings, experiences you have? What do your experiences feel like? When I get overrun, I feel like my blood sugar drops and I get woozy. Okay. So some of the experiences that I've had is where it's a very jarring and almost, you ever see Days of Our Lives where they're like, Marlena is having a bit. No, sometimes it's like that. I haven't had full on nosebleeds, but I noticed that like my sinuses get bothered. And sometimes I'll have, this might be gross, but like dry blood. It really depends. It sometimes feels like an anxiety attack. Sometimes feels like it's an anxiety attack. Now, how do you protect yourself from this? Constant communication with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Constant communication with God. For those who don't, and I apologize, some of the terms that I use might be a little, for God might be advanced, and I apologize. Constant communication with God. You have to almost like live your entire life in constant communication with God. I mean, some rabbis will tell you to sage. I think that could be a good idea. But you have to keep your tefillah as up as you possibly can, your prayer. And we have to try. We are all human. We have to try our very best to keep ourselves in as holy of a place as we possibly can. And that's very difficult to do. We have to remember that the gift of Nevuah is not, we don't have prophets running things right now. When the Beis Hamikdash stands, the third and final temple stands, that'll be a different story. But I think that it's important to try to keep yourself as spiritually connected as you possibly can. And to try to work on yourself, because you're going to see as these weeks unfold, a lot of people in the Jewish, whether they're Jewish or not, in the different spirituality groups, you're going to see tarot cards, you're going to see people sharing their end of days visions. They're not necessarily there to be shared with the masses. They're there to give you something to pray for. I mean, intuitively, I can tell you, and I have for many years, and as the years go on, it just gets stronger and stronger. I believe and intuitively feel in my mind that we are at the doorsteps of seeing the world change drastically into becoming the Messianic time, where the Messiah is revealed to the world, and we are alive to see this and to go through this. If you take a look what's going on in Israel, Israel's been around for 71 years. This is the first time everything has been closed on the Sabbath in Israel. That's a huge deal. That means Israel, whether it's an accident or not, God has a plan. They cannot publicly desecrate Shabbos. People cannot publicly desecrate Shabbos in Israel now. It simply can't happen. The bars and restaurants, movie theaters, and everything that goes on is closed. That's not my opinion. And at the time of the gathering of the exiles and of the redemption, everyone's going to be Shomer Shabbos. That's what they say. Isn't that amazing? I wonder how many people are going to have a Shabbat meal this week that might usually not. We're watching the world change. We're watching the world come from a place of cold, of atheism. We're watching the world warm up to become a spiritual place again. And obviously that's going to bear a lot of confusion. And psychics are going to have visions all over the place. It's just, what do we do with them? And how do we help people? How do we help people with them? And one of the answers I've struggled with this for so long, it's become a very big part of my life, is doing this show, is being a voice and an outlet to discuss the differences between psychic vision, what actual prophecy is. And I have to tell people, prophecy was gone, okay? It was removed from the earth at the time of every other global religion's alleged prophecies. It was gone from the earth. Why do I believe this so vigorously? I was not brought up Jewish. Why do I believe that the Torah is the only divine text that exists in the world? I'm going to explain to you why. Because when God gave the Jewish nation the Torah, the first 5 books of Moses, or as some would call the Old Testament, when God gave that book to the Jewish nation, and Moses was taken actually into heaven to be given this. That when he came down, his face was radiating the light of the Almighty. And there were conversations. There's something that I think is really important. When Moses had an opportunity to talk to God, he did not see his face. Because God said to Moses, "You cannot see my face and live." Moses asked God, basically, why do good people suffer? And God replied, "To know that information is to see my face, and you cannot see my face and live." It is the only prophet to ever be taken into heaven and given something divine. No other religion, none of the alleged prophets in the New Testament were taken into heaven. And there are different levels of prophecy, where some of them came by way of dreams, some by way of picture, some by way of message from an angel. These were gifts that existed during the time when the Old Testament was essentially put together. It existed. It didn't exist at the time of Jesus. It didn't exist at the time of Muhammad. It didn't exist at the time of Haile Selassie. It didn't exist at the time of Buddha. It didn't exist. And Buddhism is something we have to be very careful about because they believe they are atheists. The universe is a creation of the creator. The universe is not God. God and the universe are different things. And it's important that we understand the difference because there are several psychics who will tell you the universe is a creation of the creator. And we cannot get lost in the universe when there is so much tangible to teach us on earth. It's just a matter of finding those things and how to better understand it. The power of prayer right now. If someone's having scary visions, use that as an opportunity to pray to God that these things don't happen. Don't assume because you're psychic, okay, that your vision is concrete. Don't ever assume such a thing. Because when we get back to the whole topic of this show, which is Psychic Sylvia Browne, we have one vision where she probably is spot on talking about the coronavirus. Whether or not she prayed for it not to happen is a separate conversation. She died in 2013. She's certainly not here to defend herself. But when it came to the life and death of a child, she was dead wrong. Because even Psychic Sylvia Browne said herself, only God is right all the time. Well, that's true. But that's exactly why we don't play with these types of things. That's exactly why psychic vision is not a game. It's not something to be toyed with. And I think it's important that we start to open the dialogue to become more comfortable with this, because I'm telling you, I'm not psychically, practically from what I see on social media, this is becoming a hot topic. People are very interested in what's going to be in the future. The future is only for God to know 100%. And when you have a good vision, pray with all your might that it comes into happen, whether it's on a global scale or something for yourself or something for your friends. If you have a vision about the people you love, pray for those things to happen for them. Maybe don't go and tell them because you don't know if it doesn't happen, or it doesn't happen in the timeline that in your human understanding that you thought it did. It can be very discouraging. It's a much bigger deal. Psychics and tarot card readers, palm readers, fortune tellers, these are all way more relevant. It's a way more relevant topic than most Orthodox Jews will give credence. Because we have a lot of people who simply don't believe because Nevuah is no longer, as Nevuah was taken from the earth. I'm going to sign off, guys. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this was appreciated. And for all of you who watched and who interacted, thank you so much. And I will post the picture below in the comments of the vision and the book in which it came from. Also, I'm going to post the video of when Psychic Sylvia Browne was on Montel Williams, where she gave Sean Hornbeck's parents dead wrong information. Because if we're going to talk about it, we got to talk about it from all angles. Not just because she was right about the coronavirus doesn't mean she was right about everything else. And that doesn't mean we're supposed to play with psychic predictions. That is a very personal thing, and it's given for a reason. And as soon as much as I've learned, I have a lot more to learn. And I'm going to keep rare abilities on the forefront of this show, because I've had to tell people just last week that people and angels are not the same thing. Yep. How many other people have to go through that? Maybe not many. It's a serious topic, and we're going to try to maneuver through it as much as we can, the best as we can, bearing in mind that everything is from God. Everything. Wishing you all a wonderful Wednesday, and hope you all have a great, great night. Stay safe, keep away from each other, and I will see you soon.